Oroville Dam is 770 feet of compacted earth, the tallest dam in the United States, sitting above more than 11 million people, and for decades, almost nobody talked about it. Then in February 2017, its main spillway split open mid-release. Its emergency backup began eroding on a bare hillside, and 188,000 people were told to run. The dam held, but what failed, and what had been quietly failing for years before anyone noticed, starts with what this structure is actually made of. Completed in 1968, the Oroville Dam is a 770-foot-tall embankment of zoned, compacted earth, the tallest of its kind in the United States. This massive barrier blocks the Feather River Valley, serving as the central storage reservoir for the state water project. To function safely, a dam of this scale must actively manage the water it holds. The structure operates as an integrated system of distinct engineering components, each designed to handle hydraulic pressure in fundamentally different ways. At the heart of this system is the main service spillway. Positioned on the right edge of the dam, this spillway is a massive concrete chute measuring 3,000 feet in length and 179 feet in width. It functions as the primary controlled release path, engineered to safely guide water away from the reservoir and drop it back into the river channel below. 8 massive steel radial gates control the flow at the top of the chute, acting as the primary valves for the entire reservoir. Under maximum design conditions, this single concrete channel is built to withstand a torrent of 150,000 cubic feet of water per second. It is a system built on a simple premise. The immense weight of the lake is held by the earth, while the violent energy of high-volume releases is borne entirely by this long-gated concrete path. Every component depends on the stability of the other, and any shift in how they distribute this immense hydraulic pressure threatens the integrity of the entire system. To the left of the main gate sits a second barrier, the auxiliary spillway. This backup release surface consists of a 50-foot-high concrete weir stretching across the rim of an unlined, natural earthen hillside. Unlike the main chute, there is no concrete channel here to guide water down to the river. If the reservoir ever overflows, the water must run directly over the exposed soil and rock of the mountain itself. Under the design assumptions of the late 1960s, engineers believed this native hillside was stable enough to withstand rare, short-duration releases without eroding. But concrete, like the earth beneath it, changes over time. Across the vast concrete surfaces of the dam, small signs of wear began to accumulate. Fine cracks spiderwebbed across the main spillway's concrete slabs. Dark, damp stains spread along the seams where the thick concrete panels met, carrying minerals and rust from inside the structure. These dark lines, coated in white mineral crusts left behind by escaping moisture, signal active seepage. They are visual evidence of water finding paths where none should exist. To a casual observer, these imperfections appeared cosmetic, ordinary weathering on a monumental structure. But on a barrier holding back billions of gallons of water, minor cracking reveals that water is migrating through the concrete. The physical scale of the dam creates an illusion of permanent safety, masking the reality that concrete is porous, water is patient, and microscopic shifts can slowly undermine the strongest foundations. Behind the massive scale of the concrete chute lies a decades-long paper trail. Between 2005 and 2016, inspectors from the California Department of Water Resources examined the spillway at least once a year. The Division of Safety of Dams and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission oversaw this process, receiving regular field reports. Under this oversight framework, routine visual assessments were supplemented by special inspections in 2009, 2012, 2015, and 2016. The resulting records described a structure under ongoing watch rather than clean health. Instead of a single defect, they documented a slow, systemic decline. In 2009, inspectors noted deteriorating concrete joints and corrosion eating away at the embedded drainpipe work. By 2012, assessments recorded active crack propagation throughout the chute slab. In 2015, inspectors observed new surface cracks near the upper end of the chute and recorded increased seepage through the underdrains, prompting further temporary patching. Internal DWR engineering memoranda went further than the routine checklists. These briefs warned that some concrete sections were dangerously thin, measuring only 7 inches thick. The documents flagged inadequate steel anchorage securing the slabs to the mountain and detailed how the aging clay drainage pipes beneath the concrete were collapsing. Yet the response to these warnings remained entirely incremental. Rather than ordering a comprehensive rebuild, the operator relied on localized repairs. Crews injected epoxy into cracks, patched worn concrete surfaces, and cleared clogged drains, a reactive approach documented in maintenance logs. Year after year, federal regulators received these reports, filed the memos, and issued no formal safety violations. On paper, the routine language of bureaucracy categorized the main spillway as operational, masking the physical reality of a foundation that was slowly giving way. Archival photographs from the late 1960s show a clean, uniform ribbon of concrete cutting through the hillside. But by the 2010s, the surface of the main spillway told a different story. Close-up images captured severe surface wear, with concrete scaling away in sheets. Orange rust bled from exposed anchor bolts and reinforcing steel, staining the grey chute. Along the joints, seepage was no longer a slow drip. Water forced its way through the seams, bringing up mineral deposits and dissolving the foundation beneath. The cracks, once dismissed as cosmetic blemishes, began to widen and propagate across the concrete panels. These fractures mapped the exact paths of the clay drain pipes buried below, pipes that were already collapsing under the weight of the hill. The drainage system, built to relieve water pressure under the concrete, was clogging with debris and failing. Then came the winter of 2017. Relentless storms dumped heavy rain over the Sierra Nevada, sending massive inflows rushing into Lake Oroville. As the reservoir rose, the pressure on the damaged chute mounted. Millions of tons of water pressed against the thin, 7-inch thick concrete slabs. The water beneath the spillway, unable to escape through the ruined clay drains, began to collect under the concrete, creating a hidden, upward hydraulic force. Long-term decay was no longer a future maintenance problem. Under the sudden immense physical load of a rising lake, these hidden defects became immediate, active threats. On February 7, 2017, operators at the Department of Water Resources opened the gates of the main spillway to control the swelling reservoir. Huge torrents of water rushed down the concrete channel, stabilizing at roughly 52,500 cubic feet per second. In the control room, monitoring instruments initially showed stable pressure. But deep within the structure, the immense hydraulic force of the release was actively tearing at the compromised foundation. 4 days later, on February 11th, routine observations turned into an immediate crisis. Spotters positioned near the chute identified a massive, jagged rupture. A 30-foot breach had torn completely through the concrete slab of the main spillway. The high-velocity torrent was no longer confined to the engineered path. Millions of gallons of water began violently bypassing the damaged chute, plunging directly into the exposed, unarmored soil of the hillside. In the control room, operators faced an agonizing calculation. If they choked back the flows to limit the damage, the incoming Sierra runoff would overtop the dam. If they kept the gates open, the runaway water would continue to dissolve the mountain itself. Even as they debated, the physical destruction accelerated. New cracks propagated downstream under the violent energy of the flow, fracturing more of the concrete chute. The reservoir refused to wait, swelling higher by the hour. The water level crept relentlessly toward 901 feet, pushing the entire system to its absolute limit and shifting the danger toward the unlined auxiliary spillway. On February 12, 2017, Lake Oroville reached 901 feet above sea level. For the first time in the dam's 50-year history, the reservoir filled to its absolute limit, sending water spilling over the concrete ogee weir of the auxiliary spillway. At approximately 4:30 p.m., a thin sheet of water began to cascade over the concrete lip and onto the unlined hillside below. There was no concrete chute to guide this flow, only soil, loose rock, and native vegetation on the natural mountain slope. As the water gained momentum, it immediately began to carve into the earth. The high-velocity runoff initiated severe head-cut erosion, washing away topsoil and exposing highly weathered volcanic rock. Within hours, the water tore a massive canyon into the mountain, reaching a depth of 36.5 feet. Geotechnical data later revealed that the hillside's soil cohesion was less than 5 kilopascals, far below what was necessary to withstand the hydraulic force. This erosion was migrating rapidly backward, eating its way up the slope directly toward the concrete weir. If the head cut reached and undercut the weir, the concrete structure would collapse, unleashing a 30-foot wall of water downstream. The mechanical failure of the spillway had transformed into an immediate public safety crisis. Butte County Sheriff Corey Honea issued a mandatory evacuation order for Zones A and B. The directive targeted the entire downstream corridor of the Feather River, forcing approximately 188,000 people across Butte, Yuba, and Sutter counties to flee. Downstream communities like Oroville, Gridley, Marysville, and Yuba City became the human stakes of a rapidly failing engineering system as families choked local evacuation routes in a desperate bid to reach high ground. At the peak of the emergency, the combined discharge from the damaged main chute and the overtopping auxiliary weir reached roughly 110,000 cubic feet per second. The margin between a managed emergency and catastrophic failure had shrunk to a few meters of eroding dirt. This rapid, uncontrolled erosion demonstrated how narrow the safety margin truly was and how quickly an aging structure could threaten the lives of the communities built in its shadow. The physical response to the 2017 crisis transformed the entire mountainside into an active construction zone operating around the clock. The California Department of Water Resources launched a $1.1 billion reconstruction campaign to completely replace the shattered chute and secure the compromised hillside. Over 1.2 million cubic yards of high-strength roller-compacted concrete, along with nearly 1 million cubic yards of structural concrete, replaced the thin 7-inch thick slabs of the original 1960s design. To prevent a repeat of the hydraulic jacking that destroyed the main spillway, crews drilled deep into the volcanic bedrock, installing grade 60 steel anchors at 6-foot depths. Beneath the thick new concrete slabs, engineers replaced the collapsed clay pipes with a modern drainage network, placing perforated collector columns every 3 feet to relieve under slab pressure and carry seepage safely to a downstream sump. The unlined emergency hillside, which had eroded so rapidly during the crisis, was heavily armored to prevent future failures. Workers constructed a 1,450-foot concrete toe wall along the base of the auxiliary weir, backing the structure with a thick blanket of rock aggregate and cement slurry to block the pathways of head-cut erosion. By early 2020, the major rebuilding phase was complete. Yet this massive modern concrete system sits directly alongside the older parts of the dam structure, a stark visual boundary between a billion-dollar emergency fix and the aging, original components that still carry the history of failure. Embedded within the rebuilt concrete and the armored hillside, hundreds of sensors, including piezometers, settlement monitors, and drainage meters, now run constantly. They feed real-time structural data directly to the Department of Water Resources. Official updates from 2024 describe the system's performance as stable, noting no new signs of stress. Yet, the monitoring never stops. This ongoing observation is now a permanent, daily requirement. For the families living in the valley below, this continuous vigilance is a quiet reminder that the threat was managed, not erased. The physical reconstruction is complete, but civic confidence lags behind the engineering status. A massive investment in concrete can repair a hillside, but it cannot easily restore peace of mind. The question is no longer about the engineering of the fix, but whether a structure that came so close to failing can ever be trusted again. The flood maps drafted by the state trace a cold blue line straight down the Feather River corridor. This is where the physical reality of the concrete meets the geography of daily life. The path of a potential failure runs directly through the streets of Oroville, before widening into Gridley, Yuba City, and Marysville. These are not abstract coordinates on a computer screen. They are elementary schools, local highways, and neighborhoods built on the floodplain. Further south, the path enters the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, linking the fate of the dam to a vast network that supplies water to more than 23 million Californians. While sensational headlines often claim 11 million people sit directly in the flood path, the actual mapped risk is highly localized. Yet the larger number serves as a stark signal of scale. When a system this massive is compromised, the disruption ripples far beyond the physical reach of the water. For the communities built along the riverbanks, the completion of the new spillway has not erased the geography of risk. The maps remain, defining the zones where families live and work under the shadow of the mountain. $1 billion of concrete can stabilize a hillside, but it cannot redraw the valley or change the path the water must take. The unresolved question is whether a repaired structure can ever truly restore safety, or if the people downstream are simply waiting for the next extreme season to test the limits of what was fixed. We spent over $1 billion patching one concrete giant, but Oroville is a warning, not an isolated incident. Across the country, aging infrastructure faces a climate it was never built to withstand. The threat hasn't been eliminated, it has only been rescheduled. What infrastructure concerns you most? Let us know in the comments.